So upon the devastation that I experienced during the first Ascendant release, I was lost and confused looking for a new game, that is, until I saw Once Human. And after watching every single trailer and a ton of gameplay, I had one question. What the fuck is this? Because from an outsider's perspective, it really does just look like a bunch of slop mixed together in a pot. That is until I put about 20 hours into the game in the first 2 days, and boy, this game might be slop, but it's my slop. Because I am a sucker for an MMO, I'm a sucker for a good survival game, and I'm a sucker for a looter shooter game. And unfortunately, most survival MMO type games are complete trash, and everyone drops them after like a month. But boys, I gotta say, I think they finally cracked the code on this one. Instead of making the game just 50% survival and 50% MMO, which the reason that those games don't succeed is because those are the two hardest games to make on the planet. They decided to go half looter shooter and half survival and sprinkle in a little bit of MMO aspects. And then they carefully placed a confusing little rotten cherry on top that is ARPG. Before that terrible analogy sits for too long, let's get into some of the systems that this game has. Of course, like any survival game, this game has a health, stamina, hunger, and thirst meter. The devs also decided to throw in a sanity meter, which you can only fix by taking your schizophrenia medications or taking a nap, which I'm pretty sure is Chinese propaganda for us needing to sleep more instead of going to therapy. Because when they finally attack, they want us to all be asleep and they want Once Human to be the reason. Now, this is some propaganda that I can get behind because I myself run a community where everyone in my community owns a small chunk of it, but I get the revenue. Subscribe to join the regime. Anyways, the core gameplay of this game really just feels a looter shooter, with the MMO sprinkles being the open world, the questing, and the leveling system. And also, we can't talk about the game without talking about the deviants. Deviants are like a light version of what we got in Palworld. You can get little guys that run out of your base and mine for you. You can get a little guy with a raincoat, or you can get guys that fight for you. Now, the system doesn't feel completely fleshed out, but it does show how good the devs are at mashing together a whole bunch of different stuff from other games and then making it work. And on top of this, the aesthetic of the enemies in the game are really cool and unique. From a guy with a briefcase on his head to a bus that gets up and walks around and lets you go inside of him and get his booty, all the way to a mirror that reflects bullets back at you. And once you kill some of these enemies, you are sometimes able to pick up what they're using to deal damage to you and use it back on them. And this feels really good and is so cool. Another thing I want to talk about is the building, because in a lot of survival games, building is extremely limited and there's not much that you can do with it and it's kind of boring. But much like everything else in this game, with building, they just opened up the floodgates and let a small village drown. What I mean by this is you can make your base pretty. It does feel a lot more limited, but very akin to the way that you can customize houses in Final Fantasy XIV. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if in about a month we saw a one-to-one recreation of Epstein's mansion. And another thing about building is they just let you pick up your base and place it anywhere you want on a 10-minute cooldown. And since the map of this game is about 0.01% of the Elder Scrolls Daggerfall map, the game would feel absolutely miserable if you weren't able to do this. So this was an incredibly smart choice by the devs. Next up, the gunplay and the movement feels absolutely amazing to me. This game feels exactly how a good third-person shooter game should feel. And surprisingly, it feels even better when you enter first person. And something that I want to add in really quick, and it's probably the best feature that they have in the entire game. And I truly don't know why more survival games don't add this, but you can craft stuff inside of your base using the items that are in your storage containers without having to move them to your inventory. I cannot even explain how much quality of life this brings to the game. You can save so much time just not having to go to your storage room looking for all of your items, which can now be used to sit around and goon for much longer. But now we can get into something a little bit more weird. This game, much like an ARPG, has a seasonal reset system, meaning that everything that you work for, aside from a few items that you can take to Eternal Land, are wiped. The servers in this game go through phases. Right now we're in phase 1 and soon we'll be moving to phase 2. Each phase adds more stuff to do in the game, and once we get to phase 6, there will be a world-ending event. In PvP servers, this will be World War II, and in PvE servers, this will be a giant world boss. And like I said, once the new season starts, you are able to bring in a limited number of items into the new season. The reason that I think this is weird is because I'm having a lot of fun with the game right now, but I don't know if I'll be able to play it for multiple seasons back to back. One of my main concerns is if they don't make every season unique enough, there will be no reason for me to come back to the game until they change a lot. The reason that this works for an ARPG game is because every season you can try out like a new character or a new class or a new system, but I'm scared that in this game they won't have a good enough returning factor, because the grind from zero right now is amazing, but I wouldn't want to do it again necessarily. But we'll just have to wait and see how they do this, because I don't think this will be game killing, but it has the potential to be. Another concern that I have about this game is the end game. Since I wasn't a part of any of the beta tests and I just found out about this game about a day before it released, I have no idea what it's going to look like. Because even when I did research to look at what the end game looks like, everyone seems to be on the same page of they just don't really know. Right now, it just seems like you're going to be grinding for stuff to beef up your Eternal Land. But again, I don't really know how to feel about this. But moving on from this, I do have a few gripes about the game. The first is the online aspect of the game doesn't really feel that good, and there's not much player interaction that happens. However, the game does try to combat this by giving you boss fights that are recommended to play with other players. But usually when you go to find a group in the team finder, there's no one queuing up for your specific dungeon, so you end up just going in alone and doing it yourself anyway. Now, I don't know if it's just because I'm playing on a PvE server, but the only player interaction I have is just running by other players who happen to be doing the same thing as me. And who knows, maybe this will change as the phases go on. Next up, I have a small little gripe about the mystical crates in the game. Upon entering a new town thing, you're given some objectives to do. One of these objectives is to always open a mystical crate. Now, sometimes I find them right away, and then sometimes I'm walking around aimlessly for 30 minutes in circles trying to find it. And I know I might be stupid, and I know it might be my fault, but I want to jump into a vat of oil and then slide down the highway into oncoming traffic when this happens. But my last and main complaint with this game is the optimization. Now, I don't know if developers just completely forget to do this nowadays or what, but it seems my main complaint with most games coming out recently have been the optimization. Now, the optimization in this game isn't as bad as something like the First Ascendant, for example, but it could still use some work, because even at the lowest settings, in some areas of this game, I struggle to reach 60 FPS, and my PC should be more than capable of getting 60 FPS at the lowest settings on this game. So with all of that being said, I think this game has a lot of potential in the future, and right now is just a breath of fresh air. A lot of systems that they use in this game are borrowed from other games, which is completely fine, but they feel fresh and unique because there's a twist on them. And going forward with this season, I will continue to play the game, and I hope for future seasons they're able to make the game feel unique enough to play again. But yeah, overall this game gets a massive giant smiley face from me, and I highly recommend checking it out. Now, one last thing I want to cover is the monetization, because a lot of people are freaking out about the monetization, calling it pay to win, but it absolutely is not, because the only thing that you can purchase is cosmetics. And this is the exact way any free-to-play game should be if they want to be consumer friendly. So yeah, remember to follow my Twitch. I'm live every single day from 3 to 7 p.m. EST. Remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and join my Discord. But yeah, that's about it. See ya.